This Hangout on Air is live. Thank you for joining us today on this wonderful summer afternoon. Welcome to OreAni 2018 Summer Lineup, where we'll be talking about some of the titles that we feel we want to talk about that we've watched for the summer. A lot of us had kind of low expectations due to it being summer. But let's see what titles did catch your eye, at least at the beginning. With us today, as always, we got Albert.
Hello.
Jessica.
Hi.
Nick.
Yo.
And Sean.
Yellow.
And as always, I am your host, Tenkin. Today we're going to start with a very interesting title. It's on Amazon Prime, I believe, called Happy Sugar Life.
Yeah, usually we start with the best of the best, but given what the season is, we're going to start with the worst of the worst.
What? I love this show. I fell in love with it.
I kind of love it too.
Yeah, usually we start with the best of the best, but
Whoa.
given what the season is, we're going to start with
Okay.
I love this show. I fell in love with it.
I love it too.
Is it just me or am I hearing feedback?
Yeah, like someone's watching
Yeah.
on YouTube and it's flipping through.
Did you leave a tab open with it, Sean?
Wait. Oh yeah, I'm an idiot.
Problem solved.
Yep.
So, why'd you give it a 5, Sean?
Why'd I give it a full 5?
Yes.
Boy. I was surprised to learn that this was a shonen manga. Because, you know, just by the looks of it, there's some like crummy like CD seinen thingy. That's what I thought. But then I don't know, like what does shonen even mean anymore? And I was also surprised to learn at the same time that what was that show that was just as bad as this one from last season?
Magical Girl Site.
Yeah, my whole shoujo
Hey,
site is also
hey,
a shonen manga.
Hey. Oh, that one was shown in as well. Well, it makes sense, I guess.
I what does shonen even mean anymore? Like what are what are I don't know. I'm scared for the children of Japan. Growing up on these things. So this is on the level of that. It's ostensibly a horror. I don't know. Does anyone else know how to characterize this thing?
Yeah. Okay. This is just totally awesome. Awesome.
Okay, we'll go with that.
I honestly picked it up not knowing what to expect, and as I watched it, and I know some of you might know this about me, but I love like just twisted things, especially when it comes to like just bad things happening around the protagonist and stuff. But this is kind of not that. It's a little more different. Where this girl, she's got a screw loose, and
More than one loose.
yeah, and I'm excited to see what's going to happen because you already got like, what did they do? Right at the beginning, they showed us basically how it's going to end, right? With them on the roof and the fire going and blazing. At first, I was kind of confused about that, and then all of a sudden, it's all talking about this girl that's infatuated with the idea of love. She's never happy about love, and that she now has this new romantic interest. And then you realize it's this little girl who I think maybe is around 8 years old, maybe younger. And the main character even, what is she, like maybe 16, 17 years old?
Yeah, she's totally like a high schooler still.
Yeah, and just I don't know how to explain it. My friend told me that he read a manga about it, and she's like, when I was telling him about the story, he's like, "Oh, that's the one with the yandere character." I'm like, "Holy crap, she is a yandere." I didn't even put that together at the beginning, but I guess she's this yandere character that's going to be going around and try to protect her happy life, right? That's full of love.
She's got pink hair and red eyes. So
Mhm.
So her name's like Yuno Gasai, right?
yeah, something like that. Yeah, so it's weird. She keeps this little kid like a pet at her apartment, and her apartment has a bunch of dead bodies in it. uh, and at the same time, she's navigating this world of authority figures that are trying to possess her. So it's like, and like it keeps revealing more and more characters to be either victims or predators, or often both at the exact same time. So it's this world of victims and predators. Everyone is a pedophile, and it's I don't know. It's like it's so bad. Like I can't stop watching it. Like I really want to see where it goes. But the world is just like so cynical and depraved that there's like no anchor in this show. Like everyone in the show is like evil.
Everyone's got a dark side to them, except for this little girl that she's keeping, or
No,
maybe not.
she might have a dark side too. That's what there was some foreshadowing about that in the latest episode.
Yeah, so, I'm really happy. I mean, this is, I don't know how to explain it. Like, it's just so strange and so weird that I really want to keep on watching this just to see how crazy it'll get, just to see what situations they'll be put in, and also to just see how far she'll go. You already know she's willing to kill, so like, how much further is it going to go and stuff, and her thought process. I don't know. It's just so strange.
Yeah, and how do you make a drama where everyone is a like pedophile predator? It doesn't make any sense to me, and yet here it is.
I'm afraid that this is going to fall into the same trap as the Magical Girl Raising Project and Maho Shoujo Site, in that it doesn't have anything to say. Those shows were dark for the sake of being dark and edgy, and at the end of the day, there were no themes. There was no character growth. It just exists. And banking on its own shock value is the impression that I get from it. So I'm kind of curious to see if it's actually gonna say anything to us, or if it's just gonna be what it is already.
I think it's trying to say to us that the world is screwed up.
Well,
And I believe
me,
it.
I think like the shock value kind of has a lot to do with it, because that's what I think like anime is really good at selling a story on, is this out of this world kind of story with this crazy setting, plot, and characters. Is something that only anime can do. So that's kind of why I found myself liking, the kind of the Magical Girl Raising Project, but like I don't know if that was like a clean fit into this type of just heavy dramatic show, because that one kind of had like a battle royale element to it where the others don't really necessarily. But I where else can I go to find a story like this? And dark for the sake of being dark is kind of interesting because it's just an interesting medium to watch. I think it's like, yeah, just shock value. If you're into shock value and you want to like see this really crazy premise in a really crazy world, here you go.
Yeah, I mean that's part of the reason why I'm watching it too, is to see whether its transgression goes anywhere. because like pedophilia and that's like a pretty heavy theme to put into your shonen manga, especially to make your entire shonen manga revolve around it. I still can't get over that. I'm like, this is for 12-year-old boys. It's like you read this next to Naruto. I don't get it. I mean, I know it's not showing in Shonen Ace or whatever, but I don't know. Like this sort of show, I would normally expect to be seinen or whatever, or otherwise not exist in the first place. But
just slightly off topic, just because we're talking about kind of like horror shock value shows. Did anybody else attempt to check out that weird like hour-long zombie animation from like quote unquote this season?
yeah, that did just show up on Crunchyroll at one point.
Yeah, like
and I started
watched
watching.
it.
I'm like, wait, it's an hour or 2 hours long or something. Then
I think, yeah, it was like an hour, and I think I saw 2 credits to like 2 studios in there. I want to say Gonzo for one of them.
Yeah, I think Gonzo was involved.
And then a new one that I've never heard of, like Stingray. They had this like really weird DVD era-esque looking graphic.
Huh.
But like I watched it, and it was kind of like one of those weird like high schooly like, you know, like Friday the 13th, a bunch of high schoolers, but in this case college kids, kind of have to deal with this horror element. And it was,
yeah, there's some occult thing, and there's some like resurrecting some goth lolies thing, and
yeah, like there was a bit to it, but one of the things I couldn't get over was like the animation was really stale. Like they couldn't like pull off like conversation poses that well. Like it, like parts of it felt rather boring. But like
that's why I didn't watch it for more than like 10 minutes.
It was so weird because like I've never seen an anime try to be like one of those like slasher film horror things. And this one kind of got a little, like, not over the top, but it got a little gruesome and had a little bit of like gore in it. So it's just this like really weird out of left field thing to me.
I don't know. Have you seen any of the Tsutomu Mizushima? That's the name of the director. He's normally like a comedy director, but he's also done some like horror anime that's just like chock full of shock value. So
I can't say I've seen a lot of it because a friend of mine...
Wait, hold on. Have you seen Another or Blood Sea? Those are the 2 shows.
Yeah, like those are ones that I recommend for horror because I actually had a coworker who randomly checked something out. I think it was like High School of the Dead, and he came to me and he's like, hey, like I think horror would be like a really cool thing that anime can do. Is there any of them that do that? And I'm like, well, I know of a few titles offhand that get kind of horror-ish gruesome, but now that I think about it, like anime just doesn't try to do like slasher-filled jump scare horror too much. Like the titles,
not as forte.
And like I don't know if I want to recommend this one to him because it wasn't that great, but.
Well, going back to Happy Sugar Life, it's serialized in one of Square Enix's magazines, Gon Joker. And that one tends to have slightly more mature stuff, probably for older boys, but I mean, it's still for kids, technically, so.
Yeah, I did look at that list on Wikipedia and saw a bunch of like horror-themed things in there. Like Dusk Maiden, Amnesia, whatever's.
Yeah.
And Akame ga Kill. I'm like, okay, that's sort of in the same universe as Happy Sugar Life. I don't know. This one's like really extreme, and it's kind of a mystery to me. Like, why is it? why does this exist? So I'm gonna keep watching it.
Yeah, but to go to what Jessica said earlier, I honestly don't think this is going to go anywhere. I think it's just going to be nothing but shock value, how crazy and insane everything is going to get until that moment where they probably eventually die.
Yeah, I mean, like that was a part of like Hina Matsuri's charm, was like this crazy setting and characters and like unrealistic scenarios. But I think like that in and of itself is what anime can sell well. So why not make a title like this?
But in that Hinamatsuri, that had character growth. I don't think this is going to have any character growth. This is just going to be characters going on rampage after episode, every episode. due to certain issues where they're getting into her way of
See,
her.
the character growth happened post the show, so like the warped personalities are the things that happen off the screen. So they've developed into what they are, and you just have to accept that.
So I think they did show a glimpse, like a flash in the first episode at least, of like maybe something that she went through that was a traumatic experience. So I kind of at least want to keep on watching until I see what happened to her that made her so screwed up. But yeah. Well, let's go ahead and move on to the next title because we know everyone's going to be watching this show. This show is going to just be so awesome. But the next show, I have no idea what it's about. So, Jessica, I believe you're the one that put this up, right?
Oh yeah, Banana Fish. So this is based on a manga that was written in the late 80s, early 90s, right? And it's been let's see. Academics have studied this manga and written about it. So I've been really excited to watch the anime. But in the anime, they decide to modernize it, so everything takes place in the modern day. And that can work with older manga adaptations. It kind of worked for Parasite, bringing it into the smartphone era instead of in the 80s. But in this one, it kind of doesn't quite meet up, because in Parasite, they also modernized the character designs. And in this, Banana Fish, they haven't. So you have these very 80s looking characters wandering around with smartphones and newer technology, and there's a slight disconnect between its aesthetic and its story. But I'm enjoying it so far for what it is. I think it definitely has potential. The animation's really pretty nice. So if you like crime drama, then this would probably be a good one to check out. It's also really interesting to watch what Japanese studio thinks America is and what America looks like. I always get a kick out of that. So that in and of itself is unintentionally humorous. Is anybody else watching this one?
I think that's most of the reason I'm watching it.
Yeah.
It's because to see I don't know, depictions of America that are totally not legit in anime is pretty amusing.
So I only checked out episode 1, and I'm thinking it's probably going to be a drop title for me. And don't get me wrong, it was interesting enough for me to like pursue it a little bit further. But I think it just kind of lost me with I kind of liked the setting and the backdrop it developed, but I just kind of fell off of the weird drug-aligned story thing, like the banana fish gimmick. I don't know. It's like I didn't drop it because it wasn't interesting. I guess I dropped it because it's stuff that I just don't normally check out, kind of a thing.
That's why I think if instead of trying to move away from the 80s-ness of it, that it should have really leaned into it instead. Go with the full-on 80s soundtrack, late or early 90s soundtrack, the costumes, all of that stuff. It should have really been like that instead.
It would have made its depiction of the American like gangland make more sense. Because in the modern day, you're just kind of squinting your eyes and you're like, wait, there's like there are all these like white punks with like 80s punk hairdos.
Yeah.
And with like black gangs and Latino gangs, and you're like, it would have made more sense if they sort of had it set in the 70s, 80s, or whatever. Because then you had like the Italian mob was more prominent, and also like the French mob, which I think the original touched on. But like you put it in the modern day, you're like, this isn't.
It just doesn't gel right. It's yeah.
I don't know. Like I get where you guys are coming from, and I don't disagree. But like personally, like I totally get what you're saying. It just doesn't fit like modern day. Like telling that sort of a story with a modern day spin doesn't really fit. But that's not where it kind of loses me, because I mean, I would like it if shows, gave people smartphones and stuff, and just did simple updates like that, as in Parasite. To me, that's not like reason enough to drop a show. It's just, like I said, I think if it had a different motivation, like if there was something else that was the hook instead of this pursuit of this underground drug that's really powerful, I would have probably been sold into it.
Yeah,
Like,
it would even make a little bit more sense if it kept its like 70s, 80s thing, because we learned that the MacGuffin of the show is this mystery drug called the banana fish that like drives people crazy, and like I think the latest revelation was that it's somehow derived from LSD, but it isn't quite LSD. But that's also like very like 70s or something like that, even 60s.
Oh, and whatever you do, don't play the drinking game, the title drinking game, because if you took a shot every time they said banana fish, holy moly, you'd be on the floor in the first 5 minutes. It will not let you forget what the show is called. So I guess I'm really excited to read the manga because Viz is reprinting it. But the anime adaptation has left me a little disappointed, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I'm disappointed in the sense that I want it to be good, but instead it's bad. But
yeah.
But it's still entertaining in the way that it's bad, and it's well made. Like you can't deny that it's a well made thing.
Yeah, I saw that.
So I'll probably watch it the whole way through. I don't know. The other odd thing about this is that it has like a pretty severe boys love angle to it. So because it I don't know anything about the original manga, but the director of this anime is the director of Free, and the character designer, animation director did Dokyusei Classmates. So there's a lot of like boys love-y talent in this thing, and it definitely shows. It's pretty overt about it.
I think it was originally a boys love manga-ish. So it started in 1985, so it's definitely going to be different from modern boys love. But that's what it says here anyway.
For some reason, when you guys were talking about animes based in America and thinking about old-fashioned titles, Gunsmith Cats came to mind.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Is it anything similar or no?
No.
I think Gunsmith Cats doesn't have any pretension of like how like corny and movie-y it is.
Mm-hmm.
And also it has a lot of like it does a lot of research. Like I can't really speak to how well researched this production is with regard to Los Angeles, because I've never been to Los Angeles, but Gunsmith Cats takes place in Chicago, and like it's kind of a treat for a Chicagoan to watch because there's like so many recognizable places, and like you can trace the chase scenes like throughout real Chicago streets and stuff. I can't really speak to Banana Fish, but its depiction of American crime is like kind of absurd. But it makes a little bit more sense if you think of it as not taking place in the modern day.
Right.
But it still strikes me as like crime tourism in a way. It's like, because in the middle of the first episode, they introduce a couple characters. They're like photographers from Japan who want to, they're doing a piece on American crime for their Japanese magazine. And then, it immediately goes into, oh, wow, that's a real gun. Oh, wow, it's a real shootout happening. Oh, wow, real people are dying. This doesn't happen in Japan. So it's not really made for Americans to watch. I mean, that you can assume that of all anime, but like this one especially is sort of like a fantasy of American crime for Japanese audiences.
I think that's why the modernization doesn't make it work, because a lot of manga from the 80s that were written during Japan's bubble that took place in America focused on New York as being everything that's wrong with America, And New York was representative of that for some reason, probably because it's our most well-known city outside of the country.
Yeah, and also it was a lot more violent back then than it is right
Yes.
now.
All right. So I couldn't really understand, but is it worth trying to check it out, or?
I
Yeah,
would.
take a look at it. You might be amused.
I wouldn't say it's the most horrible thing ever, and I wouldn't even classify it as being bad. It's just not as good as I had hoped it to be. So if you go in with no expectations, you'll probably be more satisfied with it.
It's fun to watch. It's not boring.
All right. Well, let's go to our next title then. I'm going to check it out, at least one episode when I have it tomorrow. Our next title is Hane Bado, which is, I think, one of the first series that came out this season, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is all about baseball. Or no, sorry, badminton.
You're Bado.
It's the summer season. Whatever happened to baseball and anime? It's been a while. But actually, I was actually surprised with the very first episode when I saw that.
Yeah, there weren't very many expectations for this, and then it comes out swinging for the fences.
Yeah.
The first episode is very impressive. Like on the animation front, like it's like the opening match and then going into the opening credits, like all that stuff is awesome. It's like 5 minutes of nonstop awesomeness.
This is a very easy show that, to me, when I first saw it, I can go up to someone and say, "Hey, you got to see the beginning of this." Like, I don't know about the rest of the show. I'll probably can't say it yet, but I know at least I'll say, at least watch the episode 1, because the episode 1's worth it. Just watching how they do the animation and how they do everything, and even the drama and stuff they put in there is just.
It's pretty intense. Like in the first episode, I've seen fans talk about the sheer volume of quote unquote suffering that the first episode has. But so yeah, even though it's like really, really, really well made, like I'm not sure how much of this I'm going to watch, because I feel like I've kind of already seen this in Ping Pong and what was that one about the violinist who always had flashbacks of his mom? Or no, it was the pianist.
Oh,
Your Lie in April.
Your Lie in April.
Yeah.
I watched like 7 episodes of that before giving up. I didn't want to see like a dozen more episodes about flashbacks of my mom can't perform on stage.
You must not have a heart. Sorry.
but this one took me by surprise because the summary for it was based on the manga, and it sounded like every typical sports anime you've ever seen. Of the coach sees someone running up a tree and goes, "Oh my gosh, they'd be a natural at badminton," because there's a lot of tree climbing in badminton, and so he of course tries to force this girl to join the badminton club. So I thought this was going to be pretty run-of-the-mill sports anime, but I was watching it because badminton, and that's not something that you see animated a whole lot. But then what we got was an introspective piece on what it means to play sports and how to deal with losing and being absolutely crushed, and competitiveness and all of the stuff that makes sports shows interesting and watchable. So this one really took me by surprise.
Yeah, I've read that they restructured the story drastically, so it kind of goes right to the good part, and it skips all the fluff in the beginning about like let's join the club and whatnot.
Yeah.
It sort of goes right to the sort of brutality of competitive sports.
And you know, that's something I honestly did find interesting about it. This one I'm thinking I am going to drop, however, and not because I find it any kind of lackluster. I do definitely appreciate all of, I've only watched episode 1, so I can't say that I know about like the the backstory of some of the characters, but I did get absolutely understand that it was a lot more serious from the get-go. And as Jessica said, badminton's not usually represented in anime. It's either tennis or ping pong usually. So I was going to watch it for that, but what honestly made me drop this is because I dropped it for the other Moe Blob sports show about volleyball.
Oh, great.
Oh god.
So, and again, like I would definitely like to know its story. It's just this time I'm thinking about cutting a lot more titles than I would normally, because I have a bit of a backlog of a lot of season 2 from last season that I couldn't get to that I kind of want to pad into this season. So, if I didn't have that humongous backlog, I'd probably be watching it.
Yeah, this thing is definitely a sports drama rather than like a shonen sports thingy, because it doesn't try to teach you about the sport. It's like the sport is kind of interchangeable. It's all about the drama of the players who are competing.
Mhm.
But I feel like I already said this already, but I feel like I've seen some of this drama before. So yeah, like even then, like I've already seen ping pong, and I've already seen Hibike Euphonium, and even then I couldn't continue on to Hibike Euphonium season 2. So it kind of felt like more of the same to me. So I'm not sure how much of this I'm going to watch.
Don't worry, Sean. We got you. We got you. I'll probably continue watching it, even though after the first 2 episodes, I was kind of starting to lose my interest in it. But it's still decent enough that I kind of want to keep on watching, especially when they introduce that new girl. So I'll keep on watching. What about you, Jessica?
I'm definitely going to keep on watching it. I'm on episode 3. I haven't seen 4 yet, so I don't know if it takes a downturn or not. But out of all of the shows I've watched this season, this one strikes me as the most interesting.
Yeah, I like drama.
I was also rather stricken by a twin tail rival. Pink-haired twin tail, ends her sentences in Dawa or whatever, in like princess language.
Oh, the Ojo-sama.
Yeah, that's like a really over the top character for this show. I was not expecting anything like that. It like almost makes the drama hard to believe in.
I didn't realize like a character like that was around.
It's like one character has some traumatic memory involving pink-haired drill tail, twin tail, fucking Ojo-sama girl.
Oh, was that what caused her disinterest in badminton?
No,
it's not revealed yet.
I think they did reveal why she actually got in disinterest, I thought.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think it was.
I thought they did in episode 3.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, I only took it for 1, so.
I'm on 2.
Yeah, they had a small reveal by the end of episode 3.
Yeah, like pretty much the note it ended on was, "You should play badminton." No, I will not do it, and it kind of ended there. Like, I cannot play badminton. I'm like, okay, there's a reason there. I just don't know it, and like I said, I like the story. I would have it would have probably been something I was watching if I didn't drop it for the show that I felt was more of the trashy anime that I like.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but obviously this is really recommendable if you love drama. But if anything, like I said, this is one I always recommend at least episode 1 to check out because it looks good. So if you haven't seen episode 1, check it out.
Yeah, it's probably the most stunning premiere of the entire season, so definitely watch the premiere.
Okay, next up we got Jashin-chan Dropkick. And it doesn't seem like... Oh, Nick's the only one else, the person that's seen it.
Well, episode 1 at least. I'm
Come
sorry.
on.
I had a busy weekend.
who? I think it's Amazon Prime. It's another one that's on Amazon Prime.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Uh-huh. Totally.
And it's pure nonsense. It's just nothing but gag, and I don't really know how to explain the world and what's going on. It's like these monsters have just appeared or were summoned or something into this world, and now they're just living their everyday life, except for this.
They didn't explain the premise very well in the first episode. I remember going back to review it, and I still don't get it.
Yeah, that's it. It's hard
Yeah.
to say, but
Because they dropped you in on the middle. Like in the manga, it starts from the very first time Jashin-chan is summoned, but then they don't. I think they did the right thing in just making it a utter nonsensical gag anime, because the backstory isn't that interesting. And basically, the goth lolly girl summons Jashin-chan, but she's stuck because she doesn't know the ritual for dismissing the devil, right? And so Jashin-chan is like, well, then the only other way is if you die. So she tries to kill her and is utterly defeated by the girl. And so she's stuck. And that's like the premise. And then from the underworld, her friends eventually start showing up, like Medusa, shows up, and Jashin-chan is always asking her for money, and Medusa's like the battered girlfriend, right? Always like giving her Jashin-chan money and all this. So it's just ridiculous. And then eventually Minotaur shows up. They're all girls, obviously. And then the angel girl, comes to fight them, but then loses her halo. So all of that might be revealed in the backstory or a flashback scene, but it doesn't really matter. It's just more and more ridiculous everyday situation as Jashin-chan tries to kill the girl and is always defeated.
Yeah, I could tell this one was definitely more like for Coma-ish slapstick humor than something like its plot is somewhat similar to Gabriel Dropout, which had that other duality of devils being nicer than they should, angels not really being fit to be, well, the one main protagonist really. Like it kind of pitted those origins against themselves and just made a slice of life school show around these like gimmicky personalities, and that's not necessarily present here as much. But if you wanted something like, if you were somewhat of a fan of Gabriel Dropout and wanted more of that humor, but not necessarily like the schooly setting or anything, it's kind of like what this show is filling that void for. Because it's pretty crazy.
I only saw one episode of the show. I was kind of disappointed by it because it reminded me of Muromi-chan. And I was hoping, oh, this is another Monster Girls comedy. I hope it's like that. It's totally not, because the situations are too mundane, I guess. Because the first episode, there's like, they have a hot pot party and they have a birthday party, and there was a third one that I don't remember. And they don't really play around that much with the Monster Girl concept. Like, one girl is immortal, so, she can be slain and brought back to life or whatever. But beyond that, like, after watching the premiere of Dropkick, I watched the premiere of Muromi-chan again. Just to sort of refresh my memory on it. And Muromi-chan has, like, it plays around with its ideas a whole lot. Like, it has a lot of, like, wacky sight gags and stuff. Like, there's a moment where some starfish kind of appear and start talking, and then Muromi-chan picks one up and throws it like shuriken. And Dropkick kind of lacks that. It almost feels like it's improv comedy with a bunch of like Japanese idols sort of like in a podcasting room, and they're given scenarios like, okay, now improv birthday party in your characters, go. And then they record that and then they animate it after the fact. So it's like I guess when it comes to anime, I want to see more like animator-driven comedy rather than like J idol personality driven comedy, and I think Jashin-chan is the latter from what I've seen.
I mean, I could see that spin on like voice actor comedy. I wouldn't quite say idol per se, but like, you know, more like there's this cookie cutter, like anime type personality that the voice actor just kind of has to bring out. But I can see where you're coming from. Absolutely.
It's like the level of a Japanese variety show or something that has like a panel of idols or something.
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
But I did like it for its absurdity, I will say. And I kind of wanted to say, like, I do kind of want to see like all the ideas that the protagonist comes up with, and then will ultimately get reversed upon and have to suffer a deathy punishment because I guess you fight fire with fire when you're trying to play with people's lives here in a weird anime humorous way.
I mean, in that case, I think it would have been better off as a short, because already you've seen three minor episodes in the very first episode, right? And so you already know what the gags are, and that kind of spoils the whole thing. I don't see how they're going to sustain it for 12, because the manga is still ongoing. It's got like, I don't know, 8 or 9 volumes, but it's not that interesting after a while. Once all the characters are introduced, the only thing you can do is like add more characters. I mean, it doesn't get any wackier than cutting off the tail, eating it, and then having her regrow it, right? So might as well, like Sean said, watch Muromi-san, which is right there.
Who else thought, like, during that like repeated eating of the tail of Toru from the Dragon Maid anime?
So,
yeah, same. It's not bringing anything new.
So the thing with me on this show is that I love gag anime and such, and it's very funny, it's amusing to me, at least, because I don't get a lot of time throughout the week to watch a lot of things, and this is an easy show just to pick up and start almost anywhere and just watch just something stupid to get your mind clear. And that's why I kind of enjoy these kind of titles, even if there's really no story. You have no idea where it's going to end, or even if it will end. I'm just there to enjoy the daily stories told and see what's going on and how the other characters might interact later on. But and also, just to me, the animation is interesting, because every time I watch it, I'm like, I love the expressions they make, and it kind of reminds me of like a little bit of an old-fashioned type of anime as well.
Yeah, like it definitely goes back to like Muromi's era more so than like Gabriel Drop Out. Wow.
and the character design. So to me, honestly, when I'm watching, I'm like, it also inspires me to like, oh, I want to draw this characters for some reason, or I want to just draw that pose or that face they're making. So to me, it's just very fun in that sense. So that's why I'm loving it. But I'll definitely continue watching this, because it's great for me.
But I mean, going on what Albert said, I could honestly accept this as a short, and if it wasn't a short, it might have been in a better format, because it might be a little bit of a slog to get the mini episodes in one big 24-minute block. But at the end of it, like, I do tend to watch a lot of those types of shorts, so I'm not like too surprised that of the series that I had to drop for whatever reasons, I did choose this one, because it kind of did fill that comedic void that I would normally have for a show like Muromi, with this kind of a concept. Like that's one of the animes I usually look for, is just to laugh at the insane scenarios that get scripted.
So I definitely recommend this to Jessica. You need to pick it up, watch it. I see it's not on your list, so.
No, I don't like gag anime. It just gets way too absurd.
Ah, sadness.
I know.
Well, let's get to a more serious show then. Next up, we have something. Starlight.
Something.
What is this? A Shoujo Kageki
Kageki. Review star.
Review Starlight, yeah.
But you forgot the emoji star in between the. Yeah.
So this is about magical girls.
Mm-hmm.
Kind
or
of.
something. I
Is
don't
it?
know.
Like vaguely, very vaguely.
It's
Like in
about
the
a
sense
theater
of like
comic, isn't it?
Symphogear was Magical Girl.
Yeah. I'll tell you that I saw this for the first time 2 hours ago. So I saw, I think, a small little review that I think Sean made. I didn't read it. I just saw that he posted about it, and I was like, "Oh, what's this? Is this a movie or what's going on?" Because the scene he picked was actually pretty good looking. And then when I finally found the title, I was like, "Oh, this is what Sean was writing about." So I guess I'll check it out. So I have something to say about it. And when I got to the second half, I was utterly confused by what was going on.
See,
Well,
that's
you know
kind of
more
funny
about it
because
than I do at this point because I've only seen the first episode.
I've
oh
only seen the first one as well.
Okay.
yeah, me too.
Then none of us qualified to review this thing.
Like,
I like
I'll let Jessica kind of like say what she thinks about it before I talk about why I didn't pursue it because she actually has a count on it. Says she's going to be watching it.
I am watching it, and I do like it. It certainly is like an homage to a lot of Ikuhara works. So Shoujo Kakume Utena for one, Penguin Drum, the Yuri Bear Storm one. But it's not as obtuse as those. So the symbols that they have are very easy to parse. So it's not like in Utena where Anthe turns into a tree at one point and you're just like, what is this supposed to mean? And you have to really think about it. This one, its symbols are pretty darn clear. And so in a way, it's kind of like a bridge anime between the normal stuff and the really avant-garde stuff that Ikuhara does. So if you're not sure if you want to take the full plunge down the rabbit hole into the Ikuhara weirdness, this would be a good one to test yourself and see. If you enjoy this sort of stuff, then you could enjoy Utena and some of the weirder fare. Be that as it may, it has a talking giraffe and a lot of other weird things, but the symbols tend to be similar to the stuff we see in Ikuhara. So elevators, girls that fight other girls, magical stuff happening, all backed by the Takarazuka review type thing. So I'm certainly on board with it. I just hope that it, instead of aping its predecessors, that it actually does something a little more genuine with its material. If that makes any sense, I don't know.
Yeah, when I watched it, I guess I wasn't thinking Ikuhara at the time, so I could totally see that. But like, I'm more focused on the subject matter that it offered myself. I kind of watched it like, for me, like the first part of the episode when it was setting up the characters was kind of a slog. And then it gets to this ending that why I brought up Symphogear earlier is because that's kind of like what it reminds me of. I was really impressed by like the weird transformation sequencing that it did to like pull off, you know what I'm like, this production, like you saw parts of uniforms being produced to then cover the character. I was like, that's pretty original. Like I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
The thing that I feared is, would it be the same scene throughout the rest of the show? Would they actually touch up the scene and do something different that would totally bring me in? Or now that we've seen the transformation sequence once, is it just mostly going to go away? I wasn't sure, and I didn't pursue it into episode 2 because ultimately this one kind of suffered my normal reason to drop a show, like a lot of the anime that deals with like high school band and like playing like symphony or just traditional band-esque performances that you would see. I really get lost on like the theatrical play stuff. So like when I see these two characters basically doing like a theater play, like with this crazy magical girl, like super productive element behind it, I just went, nah, it's still about a play. Like this is Shakespearean stuff. I don't like it. And that's kind of like what dropped me. But like I was really into
theater, so
yeah.
I can see where if theater's not your jam, you're not going to get many miles out of this.
Yeah. So like I was definitely into it like at first, and I might have actually pursued it have I not been like looking for titles to drop kind of a thing. But ultimately, yeah, I just didn't like it. But I was impressed by an element of it, so that's like absolutely an accolade to it. I just don't know if it's going to work for its benefit throughout the whole series or not. So like I really did like that transformation sequence. That was not usual and pretty darn awesome.
Yeah.
To see once.
That transformation scene was pretty interesting as well, but it brought a lot of flashbacks to like some other scenes I've seen that made me think I've seen this somewhere, this kind of scene. But the other thing is like I love theater too. So like I was always a part of the stagehand crew, so I would have probably been at that class C, whatever they called it, or B.
Yeah.
that did the staging and the lights and stuff. But at first, when I was watching it, I wasn't thinking too much about what kind of a show this was. And it kind of weirded me out that everyone introduced themselves in the way they did when they were doing like a roll call thing. That was kind of strange. But other than that, the movement, choreographing the dance, I guess you guys said you hadn't seen episode 2 or something like that, right?
Mm-mm.
But there's some interesting choreographing going on, and it doesn't seem stiff, or how they do a lot of cuts to make it look like they're doing a bunch, but when you actually see a lot of really fluid animation, I think, when it comes to some of the stuff going on. But sadness to you, Nick, they reused that same scene.
Oh yeah, I figured they would. Like I figured that would be a chore to touch up between like every time it's used. So
yeah.
I just didn't want to like now that I've seen it once, I like it would have bothered me to see it the same way every single time from now on. So somewhat fearing that was the case, I chose not to pursue it, but ultimately for the larger thing of me not just jiving with anime primarily involving theater or like brass instrument in its main like premise.
But it honestly doesn't seem it's going to be targeting really the theater too much. It's
like it used it creatively, but it's one of those things that just rubs me the wrong way. So,
and the recycled animation is a bit of a staple with those types of shows that it's paying an homage to.
Yeah.
You're gonna watch Utena walk up the same set of stairs for 35 episodes, and you'll like it.
But honestly, I think it did remind me a lot of that transformation scene of Pendragon a lot. Or the penguin, whatever that one was.
Oh, Penguin Drum. I was like, Pendragon.
Yeah, sorry, I sounded dragon. I think that's what it reminded me a lot of when I saw that transformation scene.
Yeah, like, but I haven't watched it, so the only thing that I really thought of was kind of like I mentioned Simple Gear, because like one of the big things is the characters like always have some kind of a song going on while the battle combat's happening, and that was a little present here. Not like the same way that something like Macross pulls off, where like separate concerts happening alongside the combat. It's like the characters themselves like singing to their benefit helps them throughout their battle. So oh shoot, I need to disable my alarm.
That was another thing I was going to mention that upset me. That's probably one of the biggest things that upset me was that the version, at least I saw, didn't translate what they were singing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really curious as to what they're singing about, if it has anything to do with what they're fighting about, or is it the same song over and over, or are they trying to express their feelings with the songs as they go through? So that's only one thing that's kind of upsets me right now, that they don't have that translated in the show. So I hope later on I can find some translation of what they're singing about.
I believe High Dive has it translated.
How much does that cost?
$4 a month.
Uh,
I don't know. I'm sick of supporting Sentai. Like whatever.
I know that in
like,
another year and a half they're gonna switch platforms on us, but
yeah, I'm like, is this some sort of scam? Like, is this some sort of tax evasion thing? That why are they like why are they constantly like unpacking and then rebranding their platform like over and over?
I didn't know it was Sentai back though. That's kind of interesting. They're
Yeah.
at least one of the larger licensors around. So, like at the disc level specifically.
I'm not too sure about this show. That's what I've only seen the. I mean, that's why I gave it a number because I kind of wanted to hear from other people who have seen past episode 1. But anyway, I think watching this, like, I was somehow dissatisfied by it, and it kind of made me realize that the reason you put up with Ikuhara's bullshit is that because there's sort of a purpose to it. Like he's trying to make some sort of like social criticism through his anime, and he presents you this puzzle, and the only way you can like solve the puzzle is to deconstruct all these like cultural concepts, and by deconstructing it you start to understand like the nature of the injustice that Ikuhara wants you to think about. So
And then this show just did like the Sympho Gear battle thing instead.
Yeah, where this show,
the puzzle.
It had the elements of Ikuhara's style, but not the thing that made it pointful. At least in the first episode. I haven't seen the second episode. I hope they do something. But if this is just like cute girls doing cute things, but with Ikuhara stylization, then that's like profoundly sad to me. And I do have like a passing interest in the Takarazuka review because I saw that like one Kenshin video that's on YaTorrents. It's pretty awesome, but I don't know. Like, this also seems kind of fantastical in a way that I can't watch it as like a straight, like virtual documentary of the review either. So I don't know. Like, I hope the second episode like introduces some new exciting elements to it. The character animation is really nice though. Like the director is definitely an animator's director because it has like a level of like detailed character animation that a Ikuhara anime usually doesn't have. Because Ikuhara is more about his like weird abstract stage-like imagery. Where I think this guy was like an animator for Ikuhara before he became a storyboarder and then director. But yeah, that's all I got to say about Review Starlight.
Okay. I wasn't ready for us to end. I don't know what next. Oh. We're going to talk about...
Actually, before we do that, this might be kind of interesting. A blatantly fake name has given me a URL to look at. Let's see, application window. Okay. I should be screen sharing. So I'm just going to blow this up. So this is reviewstarlight.com/musical. And I'm just going to cut to the chase and hit the translator. Girl opera reviews Starlight. Seems legit. The live performance schedule. So look at that. That's awesome.
Ooh.
This ain't the review, right? And I don't think this is the review. That would be like way too on the nose, but yeah, that's neat. So apparently there is a stage show component to this thing.
Kind of.
I'll have to check that out more later on.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, blatantly fake. Was it fake name or? I'll get your name right here in a bit. I'm looking at something else. There it is. Okay. Our next title.
It's totally bunny.
Our next title is Albert's Specialty. Mountain Climbing with Albert.
Lollies.
With lollies.
Yep, pretty much. Yeah, Yama no Susume, aka Encouragement of Climb, Season 3. So this is based on a manga by author Shiro. And it was unusual because when the first Season 1 aired, it was a 5-minute anime that, at the time, I think there's quite a number of like shorts, right? Really short shorts. And most of them were just commercials or it was just bad. But this one really stood out of all of it. And I really enjoyed the first season, which was only like 5 minutes, 12 episodes. And I think there was an OVA that came out with a disc. So, and then season 2 came out, and that was they upped the minutes to 15 or so, and I think the episode count was higher too. I think it was two course worth. So, and then now season 3 is airing, and it is the cute girls doing cute things. The character designs are very moe. They're all in high school. Well, Kokona, the brown-haired smiling girl there, is not. She's in middle school, but all the others are in high school. They clearly do not look like they belong in high school, design-wise. So, yeah, it's a cute girls doing cute things, and in this case, it's climbing mountains. They're mountaineers. There's a little bit of hiking too, obviously, and a little bit of trekking, backpacking eventually. But mostly it's about climbing a lot of different mountains. So right up my alley because I like to go hiking and I like to go backpacking. So. But yeah, season 3, it's been a little bit interesting because I'm not too sure about the animation quality. There are beautiful moments, and there is clear character development and character growth, which is nice to see. The OP is very nice and bright and energetic, and actually this is the ED, sorry. And the OP is also it's fine, and all the main voice actors sing the songs, so very in character and all that. So yeah, it's a short, and if you
Did my internet just die? It's just me.
Or
Um,
No, your internet did not just die.
I think Albert just. I was actually checking my.
Albert just
to
died.
see.
Oh no. Call 911.
He was having internet connection problems in his place, so he was using his phone.
Has anyone else watched other seasons of this, or has it been?
I watched like 3 episodes, maybe the first season.
So do they do like a different trail every episode, or is it all about like climbing the big one or something?
I watched the first season, but it was so long ago I don't really remember, but I think they do different trails throughout the show.
I think so as well. Second.
I mean, there was an episode on how to get all the right gear and that kind of thing. But I think they started out on one of the easier trails and then they worked up to a harder one.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think the beginning of it was just the girl learning about mountain climbing from her friend or cousin or something like that, right?
Something like that, yeah.
And I guess her family always did mountain climbing, so she started learning from her so that they can go on one. And then they ended up meeting 2 other people or something like that were interested.
Yeah, we can hear you, Albert.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that.
Reincarnated.
Yeah, I'm on my smartphone and the app just quit straight out.
So, like, are you like undergoing one of those isekai at this moment? Because you're like on your smartphone.
Yeah, possibly. Possibly.
It's like a
You
big
know how I love them
facilitator.
isekai shows.
Just watch out for trucks. So, Albert, we were just talking about like how this show started. We forgot. Like,
I was actually asking, do they do like different trails every episode, or are they all just like, is it all about climbing the big one or whatever?
No, I mean it started with Aoi actually here I'll pull up the picture. So Aoi, the girl there in the middle, right? She was kind of she reconnects with her childhood friend, or meaning, they're in high school, so she knew that her in like middle school, and no, I think they were in elementary when they knew each other. But Hinata is the girl on the left with the twin tails there, dark-haired girl. And Hinata's dad is, into all this outdoor stuff and mountaineering. So obviously she has an interest in the outdoors, while Aoi was like kind of a indoor girl. And in fact, that all came about because she broke her ankle on the jungle gym playing around mountain climbing. Oh, I'm climbing, and then she slips and she breaks her ankle, and then became an indoor girl, right? So, but then when Aoi reconnects with Hinata, Hinata reminds her about the fun they had and the sunrise they saw when they went on an overnight climbing trip with her dad. And so to pursue that, they go through, like, each episode was about, sometimes it was about getting the equipment ready, or trying out the tent in the backyard, or just planning a trip, a route, which trains to take, which bus to take, getting there, making the climb, making the hike more like, and that kind of thing. So that's how it started. But now, last season and second season, they went to try to climb Mount Fuji, which is the highest mountain in Japan. And Aoi failed because she got altitude sickness. Right? And so this season, she vows to herself, I'm going to try again. But it's heading into, the fall, and it's already too late for this season. So she's kind of like training for next year.
So is this series going to end in a movie where they climb Mount Fuji?
I don't know, because the manga is ongoing. I think she does climb it, but then there's Mount Fuji. If you can climb it in a day, it's actually not that hard. It is hard, but a lot of people do it, and there are lines and lines of people going up during the climbing months, right? But there are other much harder technical mountains, and I think, as far as I know, like later in the manga, they get more involved in the overnight backpacking aspect of some of it, because Kaede-san, which is their senpai, right? She's done more of that. So I think there's additional challenges that will come about. And it's interesting that so far we're on the third episode, and we haven't seen the new girl, Honoka, whom they all befriended. She's a kind of a photography buff. And she's prominently shown in all the previews and in the advertisement, but she hasn't shown up yet. So I'm interested in seeing how she comes up in the next, the remaining 9 episodes for this season.
do you have any?
That's about what I've got to say.
Do they have any acorns that say "Konnichiwa" in a cute voice?
No, sadly no.
Oh.
But there's always cute little animals. because Kokona-chan, which is the middle schooler there, she likes to go find cute animals to see in nature.
So to pick up this third season, we definitely need to watch the other ones, right?
Maybe. I mean, it's kind of self-explanatory, but yeah, it would help if you watch the other season. And like I said, the first season, it's 5 minutes times 12 episodes, right? And then the second season is 15-minute episodes times, I think, 24. So it's not that big of an investment in time.
Do you think if you're an outdoors person or you like doing climbing, you'll enjoy it more, or is it really just targeted for anyone?
It's one of those genres, like I said, of cute girls doing cute things. It just happens to be mountain climbing for this one. We've seen others like the camping, right? Or I don't know. I can't really. Oh, motorcycle clubs or whatever, right? So if you like kind of a slice of life, then this could work for you. If you like, moe, this could work for you. And if you're into the outdoors, this could also be good for you too. So I think there's a Venn diagram of overlapping Venn diagrams.
Okay. Let's move on to the next title then. What we got up next is something special for Nick.
Not really special, just because I didn't fill out the sheet in time to.
Yeah, I see that this has a score of question mark and 0.
Because like the totals already happened, so I didn't want to like put a number in there to, yeah. So I just went. Yeah. Here's what I'll do.
It's called Shichisei no Subaru.
Yeah. So, see,
Is this sponsored by Subaru?
Yeah, I know, right? No, it's actually another one of those not quite isekai shows, but it depicts you donning a headset and diving into a video game and playing like in full VR fashion. Initially, we're shown that like elements of the gameplay here, and we're quickly introduced to the main cast of characters, which happen to be very proficient gamers who are incidentally grade schoolers who have altered their in-game avatars to look more like teenage age appropriate. But I was like, oh, okay, so like this like super elite team fighting this dungeon boss is like composed of grade schoolers. Like that's kind of an interesting angle. Well, not really, but so to speed up this like explanation, they go in to fight this one boss, and while playing this VR MMO, there are certain dungeons that actually, if you die in the dungeon or your character death, they like straight up delete the account, being somewhat akin to a permadeath, just in the MMORPG aspect. So like, yeah, if you die in one of these dungeons, you just straight up lose your character you spent all your blood, sweat, and tears in making. And I'm like, okay, so I kind of know where this is going. They're fighting a dungeon, something happens, and one of them dies. And in a VR MMORPG-like fashion, the grade schooler who was tied to that headset, incidentally, I think like didn't fall into a coma. I think like if I remember correctly, straight up passed away in real life, which caused, although like at the PR level, the game was not blamed. The game was called Union, and where Subaru comes in is that's like the guild name that the band of grade schoolers made. So like that was their, yeah, I don't know why it's Subaru. I don't think it's endorsed by cars at all. It was just kind of funny. I incidentally don't know if that like means anything in Japanese to have like a special, meaning of any sort. But so then the story progresses years later, about I think 6 years later, making all the somewhat older grade schoolers now like kind of junior high school age. And it kind of develops this Anohana-esque like similarity, because although Union shut down the day that that character died, the company then reintroduced the service 6 years later, calling it Reunion. And one of the most cryptically weird things about it was, like, if you were one of the most successful players, the company that admittedly made the game was like one of those, it's like the Apple of that, of the the Apple or the Intel. It's just like a really big company put out this game, and their top gamers, they are actually giving a free pass into their company, into these elitist roles. The catch call here is that you have to be somewhat like super compatible with the headset. The anime calls it sense. It's like you have to have sense, and no, not like common sense, which is like what most people would probably have not watching this show. But so like only certain gamers were allowed in, but also one of the things was anyone who had an account for the old game got like an automatic pass into the new one. So it's kind of like the high schoolers are potentially reuniting. I haven't got that far into the story because I've only been able to check out ones. But ever since that day, these elitist grade school gamers, our main protagonists, stopped playing games for the most part, I think, and at least VR MMOs. And he had a band of friends. I don't think they were the original group. Maybe they might have been, because I don't know like how big the drifting has happened, paralleling this one to Anohana specifically. But they keep saying, come on, you're like the only one we know with an account. Our guild won't help us out. Just help us get like basically a job with this company by like beating this dungeon, and like, because you're like good at video games and stuff. So he dives into the game. Although he's a newbie character, none of his stats like carried through. They proceed to do a dungeon. While doing the dungeon, more anime shenanigans happen there, but all of a sudden the dungeon's overhauled. And this seems odd to the character because nothing like this happened before. And obviously the other two were too new. That's why I don't think they were his friends who used to play Union. We're like, oh, maybe this is a new feature of the new game. That's why you're not used to it. He proceeds through the dungeon without enemies or bosses and comes upon a chest. Upon opening the chest, it is the avatar and personality of the grade schooler who died 6 years ago, like essentially trapped in the game. So I don't know if this is going to try to be like a huge dramatic tale like Anohana was. We got elements of drifting and someone who passed away as a grade schooler being reintroduced to a high school, like, a high school aged friends years later. I've only checked out episode 1, but I liked the mechanic enough to at least, give it a shot. Because while I don't think drama is going to be its main selling point, I'm not sure that it is. If that's what it's going to do, great. If it goes off and tries to be a traditional trashy anime otherwise, then that's what it does. But like watching the first episode, I just kind of went, all right, I have to at least give this one probably a watch through to the end, but it definitely grasped me into asking so many questions about what they're going to try to do with it that I was kind of sold into it, and I at least wanted to give it a call out. I'm not saying it's going to be great. I'm not saying it's going to be the second coming of Anohana, but that's what it made me think of for an obvious reason.
I mean, how much of it takes place in the game world?
Most of it. Well, in the first episode, that's pretty much what set up the premise. And we only after the character died do we see the characters, basically, well, the main protagonist in the real world before he dives back in, and his avatar now basically looks like a lot how he designed it when he was 6 years younger. But as I said, I haven't checked out episode 2 or even 3. I don't know if this is going to have a lot of him getting back with his old friends saying, hey, our friend who died years ago is in this game. Come play it again. Figure out if we can. I don't know what it's going to try to do, but giving it episode 1, it's like the one title that I wanted to call out in the list of what everyone else already picked.
So, not to be spoiling or anything, but he dies.
Oh,
I'm just kidding. No, no. Actually, I questioned a lot when I was watching this. I've seen up to the 3rd episode.
Mm-hmm.
I also questioned Subaru, like the car company and everything as well, because they have these rings on, and the rings have a star in the center, which is a 4-point star that looks like the exact same symbols that they use in the Subaru car symbol.
Oh yeah.
So when I did look it up, actually, it says that the Subaru in Japanese means unite. So
Okay.
so I think that's why they did it. But also,
That's
it's also a
why it was called
cluster of
Union.
and that's also a cluster of 6 stars for this constellation. So I think that's also why they used it, because there's 6 members within the group.
Okay,
So-
and yeah, a little bit of an info on potentially the origin for the car company name and like logo decal symbol thing.
Do any of the characters have a witch's broom that makes a real Subaru car exhaust
No,
sound?
no, it's not. It's not that show, Sean. Stop. There is like a
gotta
witch in
say,
Enchanter,
though, that
but no car motif front broom flying spacefaring shenanigans here.
Yeah, but
the
as far
hardest part of this premise to swallow is not the fact that somebody who died showed up in the game, but that the top tier guild is made up a bunch of grade school
I
kids.
know, right?
Because I play MMOs, and let me tell you, they are bar none the worst players out there. They're horrible. And it also makes me wonder if a game did implement that, where if you failed in the dungeon, if you had a party wipe, that your character was deleted. I don't think a lot of people would go for that, because
You don't have to play those dungeons. They were just
no,
really
you don't
difficult.
have to, but
Yeah.
why would you want to? I mean, so I've played Final Fantasy XIV for a little less than a year, and when I did my game time, it said that I had played for over 14 days worth of time.
Yeah, like
So I would not risk having my character deleted.
Mhm.
Lose everything. So it's just, what would be the benefit of running that dungeon?
I get you, but like I said, it's
Sounds
just the premise of the
life,
show.
maybe, but
Like I want to watch more of it because I kind of want to compare it to Anohana, but like at the same time I can see it not getting that dramatic. But like if it's not going to do drama, what is it going to do? Like I like even looking at the premise online at an anime site right now, it's like part of the premise in the explanation is like, is she a digital ghost or what? So like even like the review is kind of like hinting that. Much like Anohana, that was kind of the mystery of the show, is like where's this going to go from here? And that kind of made you want to watch it, and then you were watching this dramatic show from there on out. This might not go that route, but if it does, it's just kind of like it's like, you know, like I guess that E.T. into other shows like it, like that weird radar cam only thing that came up, that it's like, oh, this is a lot like E.T., just like new age for the kids using new premises. A movie that came out, I forgot it was called, like Echo or something. But yeah, I just don't know if it's a second coming of the story, or like, hey, we're gonna totally jack that premise and go a different angle with it. But like I'm on board and watching it just cause I want to know, you blatantly ripped off this aspect of the show. What are you going to do with it?
I just can't do MMO anime anymore.
Yeah, you're good.
It's like hearing that someone died in the game, but they're now a ghost in the game. It's like, man, I saw an anime 15 years ago or something called Dot Hack.
Yeah,
and
no,
that was the premise.
That absolutely, like, that's what made me kind of say like in typical VR MMO fashion, because you could also argue that was somewhat done with Sword Art, where like not just the concept of the death game, but then like the weird murder mystery story that started up with the Gun Gale arc. Like that's just somewhat a pretense to VR MMOs, is like death is involved somehow, some way. Either you're trapped in a coma because you lost your character because of a weird computer virus, or whatever.
Dot Hack sign, April 4th, 2002.
Oh, that takes me back.
Yeah, I know, right? But yeah, that premise kind of goes hand in hand with VR MMO, and like sometimes it doesn't, and you get like another story, like I guess Log Horizon, but because that's not permanent. In that one, you totally respawn.
But as far as him being in the game and out of the game, most of it does take place within the game world. We do have moments where they have conversations outside of it. But overall, right now, at least up to the 3rd episode, it's mostly within the game.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like I won't watch some sort of MMO related anime, but I feel like there has to be something like new or novel about it.
I gotcha.
And even though I don't really recommend whatever no Susume, whatever that show was. Recommendation of the wonderful internet life or whatever.
Oh yeah, I thought you were talking about the mountain one. Just for
Recovery of an
reason.
MMO junkie.
Oh yes.
It was mistranslated. Like that had enough novel stuff about it, like the protagonist, the sort of like the equal amount of time that they spent online and offline in the storytelling. Like that was enough novelty to get me to watch it. But yeah, whatever. Sorry.
Yeah, the only big conflict in this show that they've shown is just that what's her name? The girl that they find. She has like her sense is super aware because she can see into the future. So everyone wants her. So
I'm like, how does the game give you precognition?
Yeah, so that's the only big conflict is that they're constantly being fought because they want her to join their guild. And
you just see that RNG before it happens.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was like thinking, like at like a non-meta level, like it's totally like just selling you parts of the code. Like the game's making code-based predictions, and that's how it makes it a skill. It looks into the routines for you.
I'm gonna give it one more episode, but it's on the chopping block for me.
No, absolutely. Like I'm not saying I've only tried episode 1. It sounds like George is saying that they're mostly trying to safeguard the ghost character because a lot of other people just want her on their team, which that I can kind of foresee the story going that way. Sure, I just like I said, I just kind of wanted to know what it wanted to do with the premise that is very familiar to a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. It would make a good story if it went the Anohana route and was about grief and loss, but I don't get the sense that it's going to do that.
Yeah.
I hope I'm wrong.
No, they could just, like I said, they could have just been using it for an element of the plot and tell a totally different story, which I just wanted to say that I think for people who just maybe want to check out an episode 1 of something, if you've seen that show, you might have a lot of fun knowing that premise and paralleling it to something like that. But that really isn't a reason to watch a show through the end. Mm-hmm. It's like you can envision the story being told in a way because of this, but I'm not saying like it's a great show, go check it out. Just it's nostalgic of Anohana for its blatant premise in episode 1.
So the talk about the loss and everything going on right now, I don't see that too much in what I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
It's mostly right now at the beginning focused on what is she? Who is she really? Is she really? And then, of course, she's trying to convince them that she really is who she is. So, So as far as that loss and things going on like that, I don't think they have time to think about that right now because it's mainly trying to figure out, like, why is this here and what could it mean? But we'll see how it goes in the future. Because how many episodes have you seen, Jessica?
Just one.
Yeah, because they've added a whole new thing in there that you guys have no idea about that makes me question too, going like, what is this about? So at least watch to the end of episode 2 because the end of episode 2 is when it introduces that new thing. And also, I don't know if they introduced it in episode 1, but he lost his sense. And so even though he's able to join, he can't use his powers or anything for some reason. So
I gotcha. I thought I saw him using character skill, which might not be the sense, but like it's weird because when he first put the helmet on, it said he was sense compatible. So I was like, oh, okay.
Well, he has he has it, but it's just for some reason he can't use it. So that's why they say he lost it. And
I got you.
That's why
I
say, at least watch it to episode 2 to see if you're going to cut or not, because they do review a lot more stuff. So unfortunately, there's not enough time in episode 1 for them to get everything out.
Oh, yeah, makes sense.
So if anything, before you make your cut, you might want to check out too, because they do leave on a cliffhanger, and if you feel you can give up the cliffhanger, then it's probably not a show for you. But if you see that cliffhanger, then you're like, okay, I want to see where this goes, then you might want to keep it.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind.
Let's move on to the next title, which I actually really wanted to know about because it seemed interesting but at a glance, but I had no idea what it was about until today when I talked with Albert. So hopefully he'll share more about it for us, which is
Right.
And I can chime in too.
Asobase?
Yeah.
Asobase.
So strangely enough, it's by the same studio that is doing Subaru, Shichusei no Subaru. Okay, so I have the wiki page up, and I'm like, oh, I didn't realize that. So yeah, again, from the character designs, you would think this is just about cute girls doing cute things. Yet another show. In fact, this series is based on a manga series by author Rin Suzukawa. And apparently it started kind of like a web serialization, but then it got moved over and got an actual following. And apparently because of its popularity, it kind of blew up on Twitter. And, you know, because of that, it got a series. So here you see the three main protagonists. Hanako is the girl in the middle, and she is kind of dumb. The blonde is Olivia, and she's supposed to be American, but you quickly find out that's not true. And then the other girl there with the glasses is Kasumi, and she is horrible at English. She got like a 2% on a test, and so is begging Olivia to teach her, you know, English, because Olivia is pretending to be completely fluent in English and consequently speaks Japanese very broken. Okay, so that's the premise, but in fact, this is mainly a comedic and especially like a gag comedy. So if you see the reaction shots, you know, you get like the usual. The animation quality is so-so. It's kind of interesting in that sense, what they're doing with their limited animation budget. But, you know, you get the dead-eyed stare.
Yeah, like horror girl faces are somewhat common in this show.
Yeah, and then, you know, completely lackluster, I don't want to do anything face, slapping each other, you know, and just like, and here Olivia is reading like her Japanese textbook, like a, you know, a foreigner would, with heavy accents and completely broken Japanese. And, you know, the teacher calls her out, and it turns out, aren't you actually born and raised in Japan? In fact, when you entered the school and took the exam to enter the school, didn't you get 100% on your Japanese and only a 20% on your English? So it's just a lot of sight gags, a lot of funny facial gags that you can see. And of course, a lot of I am going to beat you up if you don't teach me English stares. All right. So it's wacky hijinks, but each episode is structured to have multiple little story arcs, right? So I think in the first one, you know, Olivia just wants to play and is hanging around with Hanako because she says, "Oh, Hanako's kind of dumb, so we'll believe that I can't really speak Japanese," right? Meanwhile, Kasumi wants Olivia to teach her English, so that's kind of where it starts off. And meanwhile, Olivia doesn't want to do that because A, she's not very good at English, and B, she just wants to screw around and play, right? So she's like, "Oh, you know, if you make me, I'll make you a bargain. If you can come up with fun things to do, then I might teach you English," you know, knowing that would be hard to do, kind of she could move the goalpost, right? Saying, oh, that wasn't fun. So the very first game that comes up is, I'm sure we've all seen Aliens, right? And where Bishop does the knife thing. So the first thing they do is with a pencil, and Olivia's like, oh my God, that's not fun at all. But if I lose, then I'm gonna have to teach her English, so I'm not going to lose, right? So eventually it escalates to, well, that wasn't too bad, and then Kasumi is like, okay, we'll play with a compass, like the device that you draw a circle with, which has a very sharp end. It's not like a pencil. It's got a sharp metal stake. And so this is the scene. It's just ridiculous. So, yeah, it pretty much continues with things like that. Oh, I'll show you thumb wrestling. Oh, really? Well, I've got longer fingers. So, oh, hey, wait. And Kasumi just, traps her completely illegally or whatever, not according to the rules, and starts pressing on her thumb to break it. She's like, will you teach me English? So it just continues on like that. So I think there were 3, maybe 4 little stories in the first episode, and another 3 or 4 in the second. And it's all just about playing games and screwing around. So yeah, again, I don't know if this is going to be funny for all 12 episodes, if they're going to introduce something new. From the format, I kind of feel like this would be better off as a 15-minute short. But so far, the first 2 episodes had me laughing a lot, so I'm continuing to watch it.
So, for my kind of 2 cents on this story is, I was actually really rubbed the wrong way with like the facial gags that it pulls off. I don't know. I usually just don't appreciate that sort of animation, and the only one that I ever really forgave for their weird like visual gags was like basically the Bakemonogatari series. That's like the only one where it hasn't been a contender for me to drop it because of the weird visuals that they put. But I think I was really sold into this show because of the characters. As Albert mentioned, Olivia, because she has foreign parents, she totally plays the foreigner card, even though she doesn't really have it. But that's like her school gimmick, is she wants to fool everybody into thinking she's a foreigner. And that's what she tries to do. I will say that by episode 1, most of her friends figure it out. So I think that'll be a reoccurring theme throughout the rest of the show, because she's still acting that way for the rest of the class. But like her friends basically find out about it. So that won't be maintained throughout the whole series as like a point of intrigue. But as Albert was saying, under the motivation of learning English, the one character actually had to make a club. And the friend in the middle on Albert's screen right there wants to be popular. So she wanted the club to be something that popular people would do. And they kind of had this like bickering thing about forming this club, but yeah, essentially it just became like a pastime club. So like their whole premise of club activity is to review like pastimes and actually do them. And so that's pretty much what you're going to be seeing when they're actually doing club activities, which take up most of the premise of the show. However, we do still see like in school, like lunchroom, not cafeteria, but like eating lunch and in the classroom scenes accompany the show. So it's not purely based around their club, but like it kind of keeps the intrigue with other characters too. It introduces teachers and student council presidents that it tries to put interesting spins on, to say the very least. So like I don't know if they're going to keep that up throughout the whole anime, but it doesn't just and as of episode 1, it doesn't appear to purely revolve around the main cast of characters. It will reach out and pull some others in to pull them in on the weird gags at play. And I did find it interesting enough to basically not drop it. Like, even though it had the faces that I hate, and I think I dropped that one diving show just because of that reason. I don't know if it was Amachu or something like that. This one kind of kept me on board. So, and I do intend to watch more of it. I've just only been able to get to one so far, though.
Well, just by hearing what you guys have said, it convinced me to want to watch it. But
Just watch the first episode, you know.
that girl you mentioned, the blonde, kind of
Olivia.
reminded me of a different character from Ichigo Mashimato.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Kitty no Mosaic.
No, because in Kirino, she was actually supposed to know English and everything, but in Ichigo Mashimato, this girl named Anna, when she got to school, because her parents are, I think she's from a mixed family as well, plus a high off family, she wants to be known as being a foreigner. So, of course, she doesn't know English or anything like that properly. So she makes a lot of grammatical errors or even says things incorrectly. Like when she introduces herself, she says "one please" for hitotsu onegai shimasu when she introduces herself. And all the kids are like, wow, she knows English, while the teacher there was obviously like knew that she messed up but decided to fix it. So it's a very funny show, and just listening about her reminded me of Anna and Ichigo Mashimato. So I might pick it up and just see how it is. I love Ichigo
There you go.
Mashimato.
That's Anna,
Yeah.
right? Quick Google search.
Did you ever watch that, Albert? Or
No, I actually have not.
oh, okay. It just reminded me of her though.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it, yeah.
I mean, the other one that Nick was talking about is Kinro Mosaic, right?
Well,
So,
just because it had the blonde one, I thought you were more going to pull up the weird, like, diving show that had the weird faces that I dropped simply for that reason.
Oh yeah. Well, this was the first one I thought of as well, but then after hearing about you guys talking about it, made me think of the other one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just more meant at the visual level, not conceptual level. Like that character does seem to like parallel to this show, much like the prior one I mentioned to Anohana. So.
Mm-hmm. So it might be interesting to see it as high school girls versus elementary school girls.
Yeah. Yep, there's apparently definitely some more high schooly stuff going on in that one. I think Albert groaned because he knew what I was trying to get at. We just don't want to give any spoilers.
All right, let's go to the next title, which everyone's calling trash, or at least quite a few people, just because of how bad it is. How do you say this? Hyakuren no Hao to Seiyaku no Valkyrie?
Sure.
I don't even know what this is.
It's an isekai smartphone one. Somewhat smartphone one. So,
oh, great.
Instead of how.
So the thing is, I was reading the light novels before on J Novel, which is a site I think Jessica introduced me to.
Mm-hmm.
And I even made a post about Volume 2 when it came out because I was like, oh, this is so good. This is so interesting because it's something new as far as the isekai stories go. Because especially with the recent ones they've been releasing, this one, Yuto, which is the main character, isn't your typical overpowered cheat character, you know, where he can solve all the problems with a flick of his wrist and has a bunch of lolly characters following him everywhere. This one is slightly different to that, where he doesn't have that physical strength or magical cheat or whatever you want to call it. The only thing he really does have, which he calls his cheat, is that he does have his phone, but it doesn't play a big role in it. It's just that he learns by reading books that he buys online. And
yeah, like access to the internet is helping him in this.
Yeah.
Like Nobunaga, or not even that, because I don't know if they have it's just Era, so it's like pre-Nobunaga, before like he was introduced to guns, era world.
So actually, what they try to say, it's like they haven't mentioned it in the anime, but in the book or I think they did even mention it in the anime. It's like closer to the Bronze Age, back in that day.
Yeah.
And but so he reads a lot of military tactic books and stuff that he buys online and things like that. But the anime is so bad
It's kind of like a tropey.
I love the book, and I really want to recommend this show because of the book. But unfortunately, the anime isn't good enough for me to say that. So, if you thought this might have been an interesting premise, I would say go to J Novel site. You can read the first part of the first volume for free there, and see if you like it or not. But they're skipping a lot of information. They're making you guess on a lot of things that's going on, and also like with the third episode they just released now, that's like midway into the second volume already, with just 3 episodes. So, bye bye, Jessica.
Because you're saying that, I kind of want to know the studio, so I was going to look into that to see if there's like a blatant reason why as to, oh God,
yeah.
Oh geez.
So to
yeah,
me, I was really hoping this show would have been better because it is different from the other, or a lot of the other isekai stories, at least in my mind. But unfortunately, it's not gonna work out. I'm sad to say.
yeah. So like the studio is EMT Squared, which on the one side I'm looking at credits the other works of the studio as the Alice from the last season, Love Tyrant, the weird Nyanko Days things that I don't think I checked out, and the Kuma Miko, and the weird, like, the Rainy Days Boy short anime thing that came out a while ago. So I could totally see why they went for that angle, because that kind of like is their visual trope at that point. They kind of have that kind of an angle with that studio. So that's probably why they spun it that way.
But yeah, I mean the pacing is just really fast, and they're skipping a lot of information. You can kind of see how he got to that world and everything got started by watching the opening credits. I did notice that, but they really haven't explained how he got there, how he got to his position, and even in the light novel does explain how everything starts, but it doesn't show how he got to his position as the leader of the Wolf clan. It gives a lot of flashbacks and a lot of things that go back to showing how he was treated and how he was, but they haven't done any of that in the anime yet. But we'll see how this. I don't know. I may just drop it and continue with the light novels, even though it's moving really slow as far as translations. But I was really hoping for more from this. So did Albert and Sean, did you guys just not pick it up because it's an isekai and it's the typical thing, or?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I was hoping I could try to convince you guys, but I'm sorry. there's nothing I could do about this one. All I could
At least you know when to pull your punches, though.
I mean, first episode had a lot of scenes in there that I was like cringing from. That I'm like, that looks so terrible. I can't believe that's the quality of the show. And like I said, they're just skipping a lot of information, and I think by reading it, you can also get more imagination behind the impact of certain things he does and certain things he says versus how they drew it out. So read the light novel. Like I said, it's on a website called J Novel Club, which you can read for free the first part or the first volume or something like that. So other than that, should we call this a day for today, or I think we're close to 2 hours, right?
Yeah, I mean, we can either call it here, or I could talk about Hataraku Saibo in all of 5 minutes. I'm prepared to do.
All right, we'll pull that up.
Hataraku Saibo is cells at work is the English name.
Oh yeah, there it is.
So this is a comedy anime in the guise of a pseudo-educational NHK program. It is not an NHK anime, but it imagines the human body as a giant city, and all the cells of the body are, people. So it's so it starts by like following the red blood cells around the circulatory system, and these are just like uniformed workers in red, and they're carrying around like picnic baskets full of food as like a metaphor for what actual red blood cells do. And there are the white blood cells that are looking for pathogens, like evil bacterial invaders, and they're walking around with their like detectors on their hats, and when they detect the bad guys, then the thing goes ping pong like on top of their hat, and they go seek out the evil, and they hold back the baddies waiting for the killer T cells, who are kind of like these black clad like grunt army. So when the battle gets serious, then the killer T cells come in, and then there are all these other kinds of like support cells in the immune system that are portrayed as like different uniformed characters. So it's the kind of like uber nerdy comedy that you have like a window to Wikipedia open as you watch it, so you can like look up all these things and learn more about it. So, in a way, even though it's just pretending to be educational, it is kind of educational, depending on how much of a nerd you are. But I think it's pretty funny. It's it has a strong premise, and it's constantly using it for visual comedy. So I think it's like executing on like what anime comedy should be in that way.
So blatantly fake name wants us to talk about the narrator.
I can't remember the narrator.
I haven't seen the show yet, so
I guess there is a narrator that sort of introduces each of the new types of characters. And also, Hataraku Saibo has been a big meme lately because they introduced the platelets, who are sort of portrayed as like a bunch of bumbling child characters, sort of like kindergartners. Like they're super cute, and their purpose in the respiratory system is to like form blood clots, like where there are cuts. I don't know. They're super cute. You've probably seen them around if you're connected to like anime meme culture. I've also heard that if you look them up on Pixiv, you're going to see all kinds of bad stuff. So don't do that.
Yeah, have your filter on.
Yeah, I actually am watching this one because I feel if you're going to talk about anime, you probably have to talk about the one thing that kind of did this in America called Osmosis Jones. While I was not necessarily a big fan of that for its more like character-driven biological comedy, this one tries to, as Sean says, be a lot more comedic with its elements. I do kind of enjoy watching a little bit how they try to structure what a body would be like imagined as this. But it some of it kind of like, and I'm not saying they fail on it, but some of the things that I want to like call them on that would be hard to do, I wouldn't have any better explanation, is like the body is like composed of every single like cell, like everything forming the heart is alive, it needs oxygen, but like it's portrayed as more building and physical structure in this anime. But I'm not complaining, just being all like, well, technically guys, even though that wouldn't make for a better show or anything, that's obviously why they went the route that they did. But I did only check out episode 1, so I'm not quite sure what it's going to try to do at the biological level throughout the rest of the show, but I'm sure it's going to try to probably not be only about germ invasions, and perhaps cover a lot of other processes along the way, which that's what I'm like more like on aboard the ride for. It's like, how else are you going to try to use this constructed world to tell the audience how the human body works, with most of the viewers assumably, like people like us, already being fairly familiar with a lot of the processes of the body. Maybe not to like a super medical extent, but college course biology level enough.
I'm roughly familiar with it, but this goes pretty deep on the taxonomy, and all the types of cells are introduced as like, here's a new, character design. So the next episode, the name of the next episode is called like food poisoning. So I guess that's going to be the first episode where that is not based on the circulatory system. So I guess they're going to go to the digestive system for that one. So it's not going to be all about like what happens in the bloodstream. Anyway, I gotta go.
Kind of like another germ-sounding one, because normally, like anything food poisoning is literally bacteria related. Again, not that I'm saying that I expect the premise to only revolve around this or that I don't want it to, but I think it really sold the red and white blood cells to the point where they're, I'm assuming, going to always be involved in the story somehow, some way.
Yeah, they're sort of the anchors.
Yeah,
but I thought I saw a glimpse of like the digestive system being shown as like a sort of factory floor or something like that, where they were making sandwiches. I don't know. I'm looking forward to it though. Anyway, I gotta go, so I'll talk to y'all later.
Gotcha.
All right. Take care.
I'll admit, when I first saw this title, I was like, ooh, cells at work. And I thought it was talking about animation. So when I actually read the synopsis, I was like, wait a minute, this has nothing to do with animation.
Like, wasn't there like another anime called Cells at something that was kind of more about animation? Like, I almost want to say, wasn't it Cells at Work?
I don't know, but I got really confused when I saw that. And then when I heard about it, I was like, oh, I'll watch this later. And I just kept on saying that over and over and over. And then all of a sudden, I started seeing a lot of pictures around, the memes and things going on about the different characters. And I'm like, okay, this is surprisingly becoming very popular, I guess. I may have to check it out later. But so, you guys recommend it?
I mean, again, if you want to be along for the ride for the reasons we priorly mentioned, like, you know enough about biology to be curious as to how the anime is going to be pulling this off. It maintains visual interest and at least enough intrigue that I think it's a strong enough title. But calling it like a recommended title is kind of really weird because of how, at the same time, odd it kind of comes across as. So I'd say that it's just something that, perhaps longer time fans would probably check out and decide for themselves if it's something they want to pursue. As far as introducing it to someone newer to anime, probably not. I wouldn't do that myself, but yeah, I think this one is like you have to watch it and decide if it's appealing enough to yourself. Like, I don't know if this is one that you could just at any time just recommend to someone. This is totally what you should check out. Like, even though like there's the meme culture where it's like popular enough, I think that since it's so odd, it's an odd title to bring up with a friend about being like a really cool anime. At least to me.
So Albert, was there a reason you didn't pick it up or you didn't mark it, or?
No, it's on my queue, but I was watching other things to try to get to, so I didn't get around to it. It's on my list of things to try to watch, at least the first episode. By the way, for blatantly, obviously fake name person, the narrator I found out is Mamiko Noto, who last year did Morioka Moriko on, Recovery of an MMO Junkie, so that's who the narrator for this series is.
Well, blatantly fake name, thank you for watching us. We appreciate the viewers and all the comments you've been giving us on YouTube. As always, thank you, Albert, Nick, and Jessica, Sean, for joining me every week. Or every week we do this. Be sure to check. Every week we do this. Be sure to join us on Anime Talk on Google Plus community, where we post a lot of things. There's a movie coming out, I think The Marquee, right? That's out in some places already. that I'm going to be watching Tuesday. So that's a nice from 11 Arts or something like that. Or
Yeah, they're the licensors of the theatrical run.
yeah,
I
so
don't know if they are their own like distribution.
it seems like an interesting movie coming out. So be sure to check that out if you have it near you or if you can make the time. I took the day off.
Also, tomorrow, which is, well, it's going to be too late for people, but tomorrow is July 23rd, and on Wednesday, July 25th, Princess Mononoke might be playing at a theater near you. So, as part of Ghibli Fest with Fathom events. So go check it out. I'm planning on going tomorrow for a subbed version.
Like the weird thing about that is I don't know if it's the same titles that always like come at the same months, or like there's a lot of Ghibli films, so I almost wonder if like every year it's slightly different. But like Ghibli Fest has been going on for like 3 years now. So
not for this set. I mean, this is like
it might be a title rotation
that's been going on.
Because I think they only.
If you go to Fathom events, they'll show you the entire list. So.
No, I know. It's just the year before there was Ghibli Fest, and the year before that there was Ghibli titles. Like it started roughly 2 years prior to this year. So like I call it a somewhat yearly event because I don't know if it's truly going to run. Like I don't know if they're just going to show every title once and then be done with it, or if it's going to be a yearly returning thing every year, and they're just going to pick 5-ish titles a year to do. But like I'm just saying, like I kind of just always like mention that Ghibli Fest is still going on instead of always talking about the titles that they're going to be bringing, because they've done it for a while now.
So the other thing is you don't have to have a computer to join us. You can do this on your phone, as Albert is, if you have as long as you have the headphones and mic, to keep outside noise away. But we welcome new people to join us as long as you've watched this season. And I post the times we're going to be doing these on our Anime Talk. So please join us and have a nice day. Bye, B.
Bye, B. Or bye, C. Or bye.